Hi everybody. Welcome to my channel. My name is Kubeir. आपका स्वागत है. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. I'm not sure which part of the world you are in. Khush Ahmadid. Welcome to today's episode of Question and Answers Live. A lot of you have been asking so many different questions, and it sometimes becomes very overwhelming to look at different questions, different answers. Sometimes are actually a lot of times a repeat of something which we have already said so many times, but searching through the group can be an effort, and a lot of you who come new to the group, or rather who are new to our groups, then basically still have trouble or difficulty finding those answers. So these weekly sessions of coming live and answering your questions sometimes makes that effort that much more simpler. Subject for today's live is let me just switch on the comments so we know who's where. Okay, right, please do comment below and tell me where you're tuning from and what is your name, so that will help. If you're tuning in from Facebook, guys, this is the first time you're putting it on Facebook simultaneously. This stream is running live on my on our Facebook group, Facebook page, as well as on the YouTube. So if you are in the Facebook group, please accept the StreamYard, which is the platform that I'm using to do this broadcast. Please accept it to show us your name. Otherwise, we won't be able to see your name and we won't know who's asking what question. So just to make that easier, please do allow StreamYard, when you are clicking the option of viewing this broadcast, to allow it to let us see your name. That's number one. And yes, please do comment below and let us know where you're tuning in from, so that we can understand where all we are reaching out, and what could be specific to your part of the world in terms of some of the things that we'll be talking about today. But what are we talking about today? We are talking today about something which has been worrying so many people: soft landing, of course, as in a lot of you have their COPRs, they have their PRVisas, but they have expired. And obviously with this COVID pandemic scenario, a lot of you cannot travel, have been wanting to travel, but are unable to travel. So many aspects that are making it a bit difficult at this moment of time. And obviously there are new updates, new changes every once often. And with the latest one, very clearly stating that Canada is not in the favor of soft landing at this moment at this moment of time. So we'll get a bit more into that, and we will also be talking about the very recent Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program tech draw. Okay, very briefly about that, and we will also be talking about Saskatchewan Immigrant Nominee Program general draw that they did for the expression of interest. So very exciting session today. Lots of information to cover, lots of details to cover. So yes, I can see a lot of questions already pouring in. Keep them pouring in, but if you can hold your questions for a bit, because what will happen is, as I run through the information that I obviously have planned to give out today, I will miss the questions, right? So I will not be able to see those questions. And to be very honest, the feed that I wish I could show you my screen this way, but the feed, it runs through very quickly, and I basically will not be able to see the questions which have already been asked. So I can only then look at questions towards the later part of the stream. So if you hold your questions now, let me go through with the information that I wish to give you. And then when we start the actual question and answer session, then, we can then, go on with that. Okay, does that make sense? All right, let's first of all see who all is here. Okay, Shivasta, thank you so much. Karthik, nice of you. From India, Abdul Rahman, when are they going to allow students? Well, again, I wish I knew the answer to the question when they will allow. The students are allowed if their introduction letter or their visas were already issued before the 18th of March, and if their studies require them to be in Canada as of right now. Canada has also mentioned about students that even if you have a student visa, if you have a visa which was issued before 18th of March, at the time when you do arrive in Canada, if your purpose of travel will be considered as discretionary, then you may not be allowed, which basically means that if you can stay where you are right now, and if there is no reason for you to come to Canada, I mean, for example, your studies are now gone online and none of your programs or your courses require for you to be in Canada at this point of time, you may be allowed, or rather you may not be allowed to come to Canada. So just hold your horses, just wait for some time till things normalize, and then yeah, everybody will be very happy again. Karthik, nice to see you again. Mehzabin from Mauritius, that's great to see you here as well. Jackson, Mobin Jackson from Nigeria. Thank you, Jackson, from joining in. Darshan is from my neighborhood in Mississauga. Nice of you. Iconic gamer, Ankit Sharma, sorry, Chandigarh. Vikas is not saying where he is from. Vivek, sorry, but he's here. Thank you. Hi, Vivek. Right, let's start with the first things first. We'll do with the Ontario. Rather, no, sorry. We will start with Saskatchewan. Okay. So what happened with Saskatchewan? And let me pull that up on my screen. Give me a moment. Okay, what do I have here? Yeah. Right. So as you can see, what I want to show you, that's the latest Saskatchewan International Skilled Worker Expression of Interest draw. Nothing too surprising there. I mean, so the good thing was that they finally did do a draw, which for some reason they were holding back on. And thankfully, once they have started the draws, it sort of only tells us that, things will start getting better. Things will start normalizing as far as this situation is concerned. I'm just going to remove this. Excellent. Right. So the draws happened on the 29th of July. I mean, nothing to it's quite self-explanatory is what I'm trying to say. If you were to sort of go to Saskatchewan website, you should be able to find this link to see the draws. At 29th of July, basically 47 NOCs were picked in this particular draw. Occupations in demand as well as express entry stream as well. The difference between the two is only that if you are unable to create, moist tongue today, moistly speaking. Right. So if you are unable to create your express entry profile because you are ineligible in express entry, which could be because you cannot score 67 points, maybe because of the age not being in your favor, or your IELTS scores being low, then you cannot create, or rather your IELTS scores not being at least CLB 7, you will not be able to create your express entry profile. However, Saskatchewan still allows you to create an expression of interest on their portal under the OID, occupation in demand stream, if you can score at least 60 in their qualifying grid. But here the lowest ranking score was 70, and this basically means that people who had 70 in their OID stream or the express entry stream, both the streams, the score was 70. They all have received their invitations. Total invitations that were given out was 248, as you can see, 248 for the OID and 254 for the express entry. As I said, 47 NOCs were given out, the notifications, or rather the invitations. Surprisingly, I mean, not surprisingly actually, but the NOCs are the same for both the streams. So if you are one of the lucky ones who have received your notifications, well, get cracking, get started. Hopefully your proof of funds would already be 3 months old, available to you. Sorry, bug here on my face, sorry. So your proof of funds would already be 3 months old as of the time you will make the application. And if that's the case, you're pretty much covered as far as proof of funds is concerned. Make sure your documents are all good. When I'm saying good, means they are as required by Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan is quite strict. I'm not saying anybody else is not strict, but Saskatchewan actually gets really, really, really strict. They go down to absolutely all details for what they want. They want your proper proof of work experience documents. They want to see your, if you are not in your home country, but in a different country. For example, lots of people are working in Middle East, but their home country could be India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, elsewhere. So if you're working in Middle East, they want to see your work permits. They want to see that you were legally allowed to work in any of the Middle Eastern countries. They want to see if you have documents which prove that you were receiving some sort of a government proof that shows that you are being paid for your employment. Not to say that if you cannot provide these documents, your application is in any danger as such, but be prepared to provide as much proof as you can to show that your work experience is valid, it's genuine. It should have been one knock covering the entire 10 years of work experience, if that is applicable to you. And yeah, I mean, I don't really like their portal that much. And it sometimes can get very confusing as to how many pages you need to create and not create, and then deleting those tabs become an issue. But it is what it is, and you need to deal with that. So if you are handling that application, please make sure you're very you give a lot of attention to detail. You make sure all the documents are there. Provide as much information as you can, and you should be all right. The current processing times for Saskatchewan for express entry could be anywhere from, I mean, we have seen some very quick processing. The fastest I've seen was 2 weeks. Not to say all applications get there, but yeah, express entry could take on an average anywhere from 2 to 3 months, right up to 6 to 7 months. That's the average processing time for express entry stream. For OID, they tend to take slightly longer, but you can on an average say 4 to 6 or even 7 months. There are some applications which are waiting for 1 year in OID stream, but these are the average processing times as to what Saskatchewan has released. So that's as far as Saskatchewan is concerned. It was good to see the draw back again. Hopefully we will see some more, because the earlier draw was on the 28th of May, so there was almost 2 months gap. But good to see that the scores have still been at 70. They did not shoot it up to, like earlier was 78, which basically meant you had some connection to the province, whether a job offer or a relative. But yeah, good to see 70. Hopefully, again, as we always stay forever hopeful, the scores may creep down a bit. I would like to see 69, 68 kind of score. Not sure if those will happen in a jiffy anytime soon. But it is what it is. So let's keep our fingers crossed for Saskatchewan to keep making frequent draws, or keep holding these draws more frequently, so that we can see the scores creeping down a bit. Right. So that was that, and the next subject for today's discussion is Ontario. Okay. Let me pull up Ontario. Where is Ontario? Hold on, guys. All right, this is where Ontario is. Okay, so Ontario did their draw on the 29th of July. So today being the 2nd of August, we're about 4 days off. And on that note, everybody who celebrated Eid Mubarak to you, guys. So yeah, it's a good, I mean, all festivals are nice, right? Okay, so coming back to Ontario, the tech draw happened on the 29th of July. What is tech draw? Tech draw happens under the Human Capital Priorities stream of the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program. One of the most frequently asked questions is, what do you need to do to get invited? Well, the answer is you don't need to do anything except have an express entry profile. And in addition to that, your primary knock code should be one of these NOC codes that is on your screen right now for tech draw. And for the general draw, then there are about another 10 or 12 NOCs that they would usually pick from. And so if your primary knock code is one of these that have been listed, and your CRS score is high enough to fall between the range that they would pick, then you can expect a notification of interest from Ontario. Now, the tech draw basically had 6 NOC codes, 0213, 2147, 2172, 73, 74, 75. To be very honest, I have never really understood why 2171 was not included. But, well, again, they are the decision makers. Ontario has the right to decide whatever NOCs they deem fit, or they deem valuable, or they deem in demand for their province. So, well, these are the 6 NOC codes. Now, all these 6 NOC codes, if your score was between 463 and 477, which is listed here, okay. Now, I am aware that the federal skilled worker, and the good thing was this included all kind of profiles, so it wasn't specific to CEC or Canadian Experience class as was the case earlier. So that was a good aspect of this particular draw. It was quite close. So Ontario usually makes, or rather, whenever they conduct their draws, their range always is rather, it's always in tandem with the express entry draws. So the last federal skilled worker draw was at 478, and therefore, obviously, they have chosen profiles 477 and below. And what they do is, as to why the cutoff is at 463 is, so they decide that they want to pick, say, 1,000. In this case, it was 1,200 and some 1,200 some odd profiles. So once they've decided how many notifications of interest they wish to issue at that point of time, in the express entry pool, they will absolutely look at the top ranking profiles, key in the NOC codes that they're looking for, and the top 1,200 will be set aside. And whatever was the score for the lowest, or the last profile that would get that invitation, that becomes the cutoff, right? So that's how 463 was, or rather is decided. That would be the logical way of understanding this. And it only means that there are so many people with these NOC codes in the express entry pool. And that's a good thing, right? Good thing for them, not so good news for people who didn't get it. Another thing that people have to keep in mind is that at every cutoff, there will be somebody who will lose out. At no point of time can everybody get it, right? So they will always, regardless of what the cutoff is, even if the cutoff was 400, right, then the 399 lost out, 398 lost out, 397 lost out. So regardless of what the cutoff is, there will always be somebody who will lose out on that invitation. So it's always going to be the double-edged sword. But for this purpose, people who did receive the notifications of interest at 477, I know that it is very close to the 478 draw. And whenever the next federal skilled worker draw happens, whenever it happens, nobody knows when it will happen. And we will come to that question. I can see some questions on that as well. Whenever the next draw for federal skilled worker does happen, it will probably be within the same range of the last draw that happened, right? Because of the number of profiles that are there in the pool. So people who did receive their notifications, they may not benefit from this notification because they would be in a position to get a direct ITA. So if you're one of those who is totally confused what I should do, what I shouldn't do, well, anybody whose score is 472, 474 kind of upwards, well, they can afford to wait, provided their birthdays are not looming, anywhere in the vicinity. So if you have a birthday happening anywhere in the next few months, you could be quite nervous about your score. But what you can do is you can all prepare your application. You can go onto the Ontario portal, prepare your application, prepare your documents, because documents are more or less the same whether you would do it for federal or for Ontario. So prepare your documents, keep everything ready, and you would have obviously have 45 days to submit your application, right? So in these 45 days, you will have roughly 2 to 3 draws. 2, definitely 3, possible. In those 2 draws, you will have a good indication of whether the federal skilled worker draws are being resumed, they are not being resumed, they are happening, not happening, what the scores are, which way they are trending. And that will give you a good indication of that. Do you wish to invest your $1,500 in this or not? Well, anybody who is less than 472 at this point of time, don't even think about it. Just grab it, get on with it. You will do yourself a favor of not having to stress. Well, whatever I'm saying is it's my opinion. So don't get me wrong. It's personally my opinion. If I was in your place, I would have done that. The decision still lies with you because it is $1,500. A miracle of miracles can happen tomorrow, and the CRS scores can drop down to 467, 468 kind of a thing. And then I do not want you to feel that, okay, Kubeir said something like this and he made us lose my money kind of a thing. So your choice, absolutely. But in the logical sense of things, if you were to put some sense behind it, then you would sort of, wait and watch for the next 2 draws. But at the same time, if you are anywhere below 471, 472, those kind of scores, you would just grab it and get on with it, because, and I keep repeating it, a bird in hand is better than the bush in two. Get rid of the anxiety of this weekly draws, whether federal skill will happen, will not happen, what will be the score, what will not happen, all that things that keep stressing you up. Get rid of it and just get on with your ITA, get on with your PNP, get the nomination and get moving. So that is the Ontario. Now, a lot of you have lots of detailed question in terms of Ontario as to what needs to be done for this question, what needs to be done for this document, what happens if your birthday falls between the time you've received your invitation and then you submit your application, what happens if your IELTS scores are expiring, what happens, if there are certain aspects of the documents, what do you do with your settlement plan with Ontario? Now, if for all these questions that you have, one of our moderators, Bala Venkatesh, he did a great job of putting a very good, comprehensive, and a concise post. And he put it up on the Facebook. Let me just bring that up. Okay, there you go. So you have it on your screens right now. He put this up on the Facebook, and let me just make this bigger. There you go. Oops. Okay, yeah. So he put this up here. On our Facebook group. So if you just go back to this particular post, which was posted yesterday at you can see 9:56 in the morning, my morning. So this is what he did with this. And Bala himself is an Ontario nominee, right? So he has gone through the process. He's done the application himself, so he understands most of the aspects of this particular application. So just okay, sorry about that. Okay, sorry about that as well. Okay, so yeah, go to this post, and Bala has very nicely covered. Oh my God! All right, sorry. See, this is what happens to me all the time. Okay, so Bala has covered all the questions that could be, frequently asked questions as in relation with the Ontario and the recent draw that happened. So if you are one of these people, or rather, if you have one of these questions, this could be of a lot of help for you. And yeah, this sort of, it basically has covered all the aspects of what you could expect in this particular case. So whether it was what you need to fill in different aspects in your application, or what kind of documents you need to get, or what happens if your IELTS expires, or your age tends to sort of, or rather you have a birthday happening after you received your invitation, your query on the settlement funds, and your intent to reside in Ontario, the different stages that your application will go through once you file it. All of this Bala has covered, for which I am really thankful to him. Let me come here and remove. Okay, so I'm back on the screen. Perfect. It's better to see myself big and nice on the screen. Okay, so that covers the Ontario. That covers the, let me just get rid of these screens here so I'm not blocked by them. All right. And then the next thing that we have today for discussion before we get on to the other aspects is this one. Right. This is for people, or rather, let me just take it from the top. This is the latest update that CIC issued for the permanent resident applicants, for people who have their COPRs and the PR visas. We're not talking about people who don't have it yet, or who are waiting for their PPR, or all of those. This is for people who have their PR visas, who have their COPRs, whether it was valid or it has expired, or any of that. If you're one of those, then this latest one was for you, whereby they have now divided everything into basically 4 groups, and this has a lot to do with the US as well. So the first group is basically you're traveling from any country other than United States. You are falling into group 1, and basically it says that if your COPR and PR visas were issued on 18th March or earlier, and if it is still valid, that's very important. If your COPR is valid, please go ahead and travel. You are exempt from travel restrictions. You should travel to Canada for non-discretionary reasons. Now, this term, non-discretionary reason, it basically means that you're coming to Canada to settle permanently. Like, you're not just coming to Canada for soft landing, and we will explain in a bit what soft landing means for most people. Though there is no restriction, there is no specific requirement here. So all you need to do is, if you have a valid PR visa, you have a valid COPR, if you can get on a flight, and if you think you wish to travel now, you are absolutely the daredevil, and you don't care. I won't say you don't care, but I would say that you're not worried about all the trauma that's going on in terms of traveling, and you absolutely need to travel right now. Well, you definitely can. There's nothing wrong with it. Second group obviously is for people who are traveling from the US. Again, same thing. If their application was approved, they have received their COPRs, PR visas, and they are still valid. So that was the, just they are just differentiating, people who are in the United States and people who are outside the United States. So just make two different groups so they can also travel, no issues there. Now the third group is for people uh, other than US and yeah, non-discretionary. We'll come to this in a minute, but let me come first from the US. Now what they have said further is, if you are coming from US and applicants, your COPRs were expired, your PR visas were expired, they are saying you can still travel with the same document, which is quite funny, because I'm not sure if the airline will allow you to travel or not, but this is what it says. I'm hoping and I'm sure that they must have passed this information to their travel partners or airlines as well, as to how these people need to be treated. But so basically it says that even if you have expired COPRs, you can travel. All right. And as long as it is the reason is non-discretionary. So when non-discretionary happens, means that you're not coming to Canada just to, finalize your application and leave back, again referring to soft landing. So very surprising that there is no, I'm not sure how airlines are going to treat an expired visa and whether you will have a problem at the airport or not, but that is something which you should check with the airline before you make that call. But if you were to drive from the United States to Canada, you land border, then this obviously is quite clear, and you shouldn't have a problem with this. So as far as group 4 is concerned, from the US is fine. Now this is where there a lot of issues are, or rather a lot of questions are happening. Traveling from a country other than the United States, if your COPR and PR visas were issued on or before 18th of March, has now expired, then the applicant is exempt from travel restrictions. Well, exempt means that you can travel, the current restrictions do not apply to you, and you can travel to Canada for non-discretionary reasons. Okay, again, you must have an acceptable plan to quarantine. So quarantine law is still applicable. If you come to Canada, you will be subject to quarantine. You have to be quarantined for 14 days. However, so we need to go a bit further down and says only permanent residents who are in possession of an expired COPR PR visas who are ready to travel to Canada should contact IRCC using the web form. Okay, now if this applies to both group number 4 or 3 is again not clarified. It doesn't really tell you in clear terms whether even people who are in the US, even with expired COPRs and PR visas, can they just travel, or they first need to get some sort of clarification, some sort of extension, some sort of additional document from CIC. Unfortunately, because of this lack of clarity, you can't really give a clear understanding of what they are trying to say. However, if you are coming by land border, it's quite simple. You could very easily drive through. It shouldn't be a problem. But if you are coming by air from the US, then I would suggest that you get an extension document done, because you don't want to sort of have a problem having paid for the ticket, booked all the way, and then come to the airport and then realize they're not letting you travel, or wait for further clarity if it comes to. Now, for most of you who are not from the United States, or not in the United States, what basically is CIC asking you to do? Okay, and that's the crux of today's discussion. They want from you all of this. Okay, and what does this basically mean? They want proof of an acceptable plan to settle. So what is soft landing? Soft landing is a basic casual or an informal term that us immigrants coined ourselves, which basically meant that if you're coming to Canada not to settle permanently, but you just want to come to Canada, you want to get done with your first landing, you want to get your PR card, you want to get your SIN number, you want to open your bank account, and do these basic small new immigrant formalities, and then leave back to whichever country you are residing in, or your home country, continue with your life there, or continue with your job, or maybe continue wrapping up your life there, and then eventually move to Canada maybe a few months later, a year later, or 2 years later. That exactly is what soft landing would mean. Hard landing basically is not used as a term, but hard landing would then basically mean for people who are permanently deciding to settle down in Canada after they made their soft landing earlier. So what Canada is trying to tell you today is, or rather now in this update, is that they are discouraging people who want to come to Canada to finalize their application. So as you all know, getting a COPR and PR visa does not make you a permanent resident of Canada. You need to arrive, land in Canada, activate your status by answering statutory questions to the border officer, who will then sign your COPR and you will sign your COPR. At that moment of time, you become a permanent resident. Until that activity happens, whether it's the land border or the airports or any port of entry, you are not a permanent resident of Canada. So this activity, or this particular transaction of finalizing your application by your appearing in front of a border officer, is what is referred to as, activating your permanent resident status. So Canada is saying that at this moment of time, in this COVID pandemic scenario, where they are discouraging people to travel just for the purpose of activating the status, they're saying don't do it. If you don't have to do it, please don't do it. They're discouraging people to do it. Obviously, the reason is so that you can keep the number of people who are traveling less. If you'll come to Canada, then obviously there is more people coming in, and again, it's a bigger risk as far as COVID is concerned. You're putting yourself at risk. You're putting your families at risk. You're putting the people who you know at risk, and therefore, to keep that number low, that's what the discouragement is coming from. Now, having said that, then they're further going on to say that, but if you are coming to Canada to settle down permanently, then you're most welcome. Obviously, then they're willing to process your extensions at this point of time. So they have said this earlier also. If your COPR is expiring, let them know. And when you're ready to travel, let them know so that they can do some, so they can provide you a document which will extend your COPR or your PR visa. So this new process will deal with that aspect of things. So you need to give them proof of an acceptable plan. Now, acceptable plan is very subjective. I'm not sure how they will decide what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. So they need to see a proof of an acceptable plan, documents to support their living situation in Canada. By that, they mean if you already have a house, maybe you would have bought one while you were visiting, you were a student, you were working, you may have bought a house, or you are leasing one, or you have already formed a rental agreement. Then these become your basic, living arrangements, your living situation. In addition to that, they want from you employment plans in Canada. Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of you are like already squirming with these requirements, but I'm just reading them out and then we'll come to understanding this. So then they also want to see employment plan in Canada as to where are you going to work? Do you have a job offer? Do you already have some sort of information which indicates what you will be doing once you are landed in Canada? Then it also says proof of an acceptable plan to quarantine in Canada, and of course, proof of funds. So they want to make sure that you have the funds, and that once you come to Canada, you should not be, in a situation where you do not have funds available with you, and then managing your life will then become difficult in the initial period of your time. And how will you access groceries or healthcare or other essential services now? That's the another requirement. The third one is your proposed travel itinerary. So have you purchased your tickets? Which flights you wish to take? Which airline do you wish to fly? Considering that a lot of countries still have restrictions on their borders. For example, India has already said that they will not allow international commercial flight operations until 31st of August. So keeping all these in mind, they just want to understand what exactly is your plan. You're saying you're ready to travel. Fair enough. You're ready to travel. But what is your plan? I mean, how are you going to travel? They want to know the details of that. Now, let's come to this basic let's take it one by one. Now, they say proof of an acceptable plan to settle down. Now, a lot of people do not have a rental agreement or a lease agreement. You probably may be coming to Canada for the first time. Finding a living situation, finding a living arrangement is already a stressful task. Now that you have to provide this, well, because there is no description, because there is no understanding, because there is no clarity as to what the acceptable term would mean, as in how will they assess what is acceptable, this has to be something which is very comprehensive from your side. So your letter of explanation or your letter to support your application for extension has to include these details as to where you intend to stay. Well, you don't have to have a lease document or a lease agreement. Even if you are willing to sign up for an Airbnb, you can provide them with a full-fledged plan that you are looking to live in an Airbnb for a period of 1 month, which would also mean that you would be that will also include your quarantine plan, that in this accommodation of Airbnb that you will be living in for a month, it includes your quarantine plan as well. And once you've finished your 1 month period, or approximately around that, you will be able to search for an appropriate living uh, arrangement based on the schooling district, based on the work district, based on where you will be comfortable around your family, your relatives, your friends. But this has to come from you, all right? And it is very subjective. It will vary from one individual to another as to what you intend to state in that in your letter of support for your application. The next obviously will be your proof of your acceptable quarantine plan. Now, in your quarantine plan, obviously part of it will be related to your living situation or a living arrangement. So if it is Airbnb, well, so it is Airbnb. If you already have identified an apartment or a condo or a basement, or wherever else you wish to stay, or even relatives for that matter, or friends for that matter, then you will need to put that in place, right? Because quarantine law is very, very strict in Canada. And so don't think that you will give them a plan, and if you don't have to follow it's all right. No. There are very harsh and very strict penalties and fines if you were to flout the quarantine law, and they are very, very strict about it. After you arrive in Canada and you have given them your quarantine plan at the border, and you have given them your phone number and your address, expect to be called at different times. Expect for an inspection to happen at your residence or your place of residence. They will be keeping an eye as to whether you are adhering to the quarantine plan or not, and they're very, very strict about it. So please don't take that lightly. All right, but in your letter of support for your extension, do mention how you intend to quarantine yourself, because that will really, really help in them allowing your extension to go through smoothly. And third, and the most important one that a lot of people are having an issue with, is the employment plan. I mean, finding a job in Canada is as it is difficult. And with the current COVID scenario, with millions of job losses, that is even a bigger situation, a bigger worry, a bigger problem. So what do you do with this? Now, if you have a job, excellent, I mean, you are obviously on a different level of things. But if you don't have a job, you still need to provide them with a plan as to what are you looking to do in terms of looking for employment. You can very clearly mention that you can't find a job as of right now because of the COVID scenario. However, this is your economic plan for your own economic benefit, in the sense like, how are you going to take care of your expenses? Where are you going to live? How are you going to pay for your rent? How are you going to pay for your groceries? If you don't find a job for even a period of 6 months, what are you going to do? You could pick up certain websites like Amazon, Walmart, Tim Hortons, Subway. All of these, or rather most of these, have vacancies for survival jobs. When I'm saying survival jobs, it's not to demean the survival job. It is just to say that this is an entry-level position, entry-level job in any of these companies, and many more out there, which pays you a minimum wage, which as of right now in Ontario is $14 an hour, and would at least give you a platform to start your life, will give you a platform to at least manage your expenses while you can concentrate on pursuing your career goals. So again, it is a very subjective thing. You again will depend from one individual to another how you plan your letter of support. But do that, and do add your employment plans. You may not necessarily have employment ready, but more information you give regards to your research. What research have you done, and what information you already have at hand? All this information will help you, or rather will help the visa officer, give your extension or provide you with an extension at the earliest. Now, those are the more important ones. And yes, of course, the fourth one, which is your travel itinerary, which is here, right? That is another aspect of things that you need to take a look at. Do not buy tickets upfront, but do provide them. Again, the more information you give them, the more details you give them, the sooner, the faster, the easier your plan, or rather your approval, will come through. All right. That will show how serious you are about settling down in Canada permanently versus just coming for soft landing to Canada. People who are coming for soft landing will not pay too much of attention to do these things. They will not pay attention too much of attention to these things as in job, or because they're not really looking to find a job. They just want to come to Canada, finish their landing process and leave back, right? But people who are looking to settle in Canada permanently would be looking at many more things versus the people who are just doing the soft landing. So do propose what your travel plans is. Do mention which airline you plan to travel, what date you plan to travel, what is the itinerary. If you can even secure a booking, not having paid, but even if you can secure a booking, that would be great. If you can get a refundable ticket, if you can buy a refundable ticket, so that basically you can still change your travel plans if you can, then do that. All of this will help them understand how serious you are about your moving right now, and probably that will also then help them make the decision faster and give you your extension faster. So these are basically most of the reasons, or rather these are most of the aspects that will be covered as far as soft landing is concerned. Okay, I am back. All right, and now I can get on with some of, rather a lot of your questions, guys. Now let's hear your questions now. Okay, as to what I promised you earlier. Okay, Kunal says, did any person is deport at airport? I have COPR holder. Okay, what he's trying to say, I would assume, is that has anybody been deported from the airport because that person was not traveling for non-discretionary reasons? Well, we haven't heard of anybody. I did hear of few cases where people were not allowed to enter Canada because they were not able to prove they are coming to Canada for non-discretionary reasons, but they were not COPR holders, they were not PRVisa holders, they were TRVs or temporary resident visitors. But that happened towards the early part of the border restrictions. Lately, we haven't heard of anybody specific who was deported from the airport because they were in non-compliance with any of the requirements. But the fact is that if you've reached all the way to Canada, you have a valid COPR, you have a valid PR visa, you would ideally you would ideally go through. I would not see that as an issue. Okay, Vandana says, delay in processing Saskatchewan files is scary. Average processing time was 25 weeks, which is now extended to 28 weeks. What can one do in such situation? Well, one cannot do anything in that situation, Vandana, because the processing has to be done, and from 25 to 28 weeks, 3 weeks is not really a scary situation. Scary situation is for people where instead of 25 weeks, it has gone to 52 weeks, and there are plenty of people out there. That is a scary situation. Extension by 3 weeks or average processing time now going up by 3 weeks is not really scary. That's quite average. Not to forget that these are very difficult circumstances. A lot of people having to make lots of adjustments, still trying to work. And lots of government departments, lots of authorities making specific arrangements, specific provisions just to make sure that these people can still come to work and can still provide the services. So I wouldn't call it really scary. Okay, Arsalan says, what's discretionary reason? Arsalan, discretionary reasons would basically mean a reason to travel which is at your discretion, which basically means you could choose not to travel at this point of time. So for example, if my sister was getting married in Canada and I choose to travel at this point of time, it may be considered as discretionary travel. If God forbid, let's say if my father was sick in Canada today, really sick, and I wanted to come and see him as of right now, whether I'm a COPR or a visit visa holder, this travel may not be discretionary anymore because I wish to see my father, who one is my family and I'm being separated from my family, and number two, he is very sick. So again, it's not a discretionary anymore. It's non-discretionary travel. Another discretionary reason would be you wanting to come to Canada because it's summer season now, and you feel coming to Canada in summer is better than coming to Canada in winters because it's easier to settle down now than in winters. Again, it's discretionary because just the change of weather should not be the reason for you to travel to Canada at this point of time. So for any reason which you could avoid at this point of time, which is not bearing down on you, which is not compelling enough, could be referred to as discretionary reason. Okay. Are they processing paper-based PR applications? Well, there has been no confirmation or no news to say that they have not processing paper-based application. Yes, they are processing. They just do not want to accept any new paper-based applications for inside Canada for the temporary TRVs or temporary resident visitors. But as far as spousal applications are concerned, the paper application for spousal visas are concerned, paper applications for non-express entry PR applications are concerned, those are all being accepted. There has been no information, no news to say that they will not accept it at this point of time. Okay. Okay, Raj Shekhar says my CRS is 435, knock is 2261, age 28, unmarried, profile, right? Well, it's very difficult to do a profile assessment while we are discussing different questions. What you need to do is you need to check your CRS scores. You need to check which aspect of your profile you can improve in order to increase your scores, which could basically mean an additional educational credential, could mean improving your IELTS scores, could even mean adding French as a second language, could mean that you have to take a PNP route instead of the express entry. Any of this is a possible option. You will need to check based on the trends, based on the profile, based on where your profile factors are holding you back in increasing your scores. So if it's in education, as you're saying, would you suggest for me to come, when you're saying come, I'm assuming you're saying come to Canada for masters and PGDM. Well, choice is yours. You could be in India or in your home country and still do a master's program or a postgraduate program and still be able to add points. By coming to Canada as a student, you obviously have additional benefit. You obviously have additional points. You will get additional points for education. After you finish your education, you're also eligible for Canadian work permit, postgraduate work permit, and that then allows you to for several benefits. It gives you benefit of additional points in express entry. Depending on the province you work, live, reside in, you may be eligible for provincial nominee programs. You may basically get a job offer, and that could again get you additional points. So all of these factors will add up and give you additional benefit. So I guess that answers your question. Okay, if traveling from US with expired COPR, do we need to give medicals again? Aki, as of right now, they have not mentioned anything about medicals. If you are traveling on an expired COPR, the first thing would be to get clarity from IRCC, because as I said, the group number was a group 4. The group 4 doesn't have clarity, as in they're just saying if you have an expired COPR, you can travel, but they are not saying that do you need an extension or do you not need an extension. That aspect of that clarity is missing. If at all you can travel with your expired COPR and PR visa, it basically will mean that you don't need your medicals at this point of time, especially from the US. But clarity is needed. And if at all you're flying to Canada, then you even need greater clarity, because I'm not sure if airlines will accept an expired PR visa at this point of time, unless they have better information or more information. Anmeet says, I would be filing for PR in next couple of months. Meanwhile, can I go to Canada on visitor visa and find a job for myself and support PR application? Amit, technically in non-COVID scenario, in a non-COVID situation, this was absolutely fine. There have been so many people who have come to Canada on a visit visa, and they have searched for jobs, they have found jobs and simultaneously processed their PR application. As of today, visitors are considered as, visiting Canada is considered as discretionary travel. So your traveling to Canada at this point of time may not be allowed. So think about your plan again and try to look for jobs from outside Canada if you can. Rishabh, we have just covered this aspect in great length. So maybe you can just rewind or rather watch this video again from the beginning. What is needed to get PR card and what is the process now? Whether you need to land as a permanent resident in Canada to get a PR card. As of right now, you don't need to apply for a PR card. So once you make your first landing in Canada as a permanent resident, your PR card is automatically applied for. It's a automatic system activity, and it is taking anywhere from 1 month to 3 months as of right now for the PR card to come in your mail. So that is that. Mandeep says 468 6221. Please suggest PNP. Mandeep, I cannot suggest PNP because honestly, there are almost 100 immigration programs in Canada as of right now, and I do not remember all of them. What you need to do is for anybody who's asking PNP related questions in terms of which PNP, which NOC, I can't really, as of right now, look at it and tell you. What you need to do is you need to go on individual provincial websites, check their in-demand occupations, check their criteria, and see if you are eligible. If you are, then by all means, go ahead and create your profile if it needs to be done that way, or follow their program details and criteria. Sankar says, Eid Mubarak to you as well. If I get an LMIA through GTS from Ontario, how good the chances for work permit approval? I hope the spouse can also accommodate with the stream. Well, if you get an LMIA through GTS, then the chances for work permit approval are pretty good. I mean, unless you have a reason for inadmissibility to Canada, or you are inadmissible to Canada, or there is something in your background which does not match the requirements under which you got your LMIA, then you should not have a problem, getting your work permit. Okay, and then Karthik says, we are a family of 3 holding COPR. What if me and my wife travel alone to Canada, my wife returns to India, and I stay permanently? Does it still count as soft landing? Well, it counts as soft landing as long as anybody goes back, rather, or is just there for very temporary basis in Canada, with the purpose being seen as you're coming to Canada only to activate your permanent resident status. So if your wife has to go back, she may as well not travel at all, right? I mean, what's the purpose of traveling if she has to return back after 20 days? And the fact that you already know that she will return back after 20 days, it basically means she is coming only for soft landing. If she is the primary applicant, then it's a different story, because the primary applicant needs to come first. The dependents basically can come along with them or can come later on. But if she is the primary applicant and you're planning to stay back, there's nothing wrong with the whole plan. But if you are planning to go back, it will obviously still count as soft landing. Aman says, sorry to go off track. I am not sure which track we were on, but okay, can I request you to shed some light on the possible outcomes from the upcoming draw? Okay, possible outcomes from the upcoming draw. Several questions on that. Okay, it's all speculation. Okay, nobody knows what the upcoming draw is going to be. Is CIC going to continue with the PNP-CEC kind of draw, or are they going to alternate between federal skilled worker, rather all program draws and one CEC, and then all programs and one CEC kind of a draw? Nobody knows. There are lots of speculations. But as far as Aman, you are concerned, with 475, you shouldn't have a problem. May not be the first draw that might get you through, possibly because 478 was the last one in the all program. Could be maybe a draw later. But 475 is a great score. And at some point of time in the very next following draws, once the all program draws start, you should absolutely be able to get through. Sunny says, approved PR application. Any idea when PPR, COPR issuance would normalize? Well, Sunny, I am assuming that, and again, it's an opinion, because there is no credible information to back what I'm saying. So I'm assuming that, considering in most countries VFS offices are closed, in most countries there is still a restriction on lots of offices to operate in the normal way. In a lot of countries there are still lots of other restrictions or lockdowns in progress. Therefore, by giving you a PPR, it's not going to go anywhere. A lot of Canadian border posts or missions or embassies or visa offices are still not operating or not functional to the full force as they were pre-COVID. So at the time when they will start issuing your PPRs for outlined applicants, that PPR needs to go somewhere, right? I mean, so you get the PPR, you then need to take your passport, send it to the VFS. Send it to the visa office through the VFS, and they should be able to then stamp your visas and send it back to you. That process has to be smooth. Otherwise, there will be lots. Passport is considered to be a very essential document that you need to have at you at all the times. Imagine if that passport gets stuck in the whole process because of another lockdown, because of shutdowns, because of certain activities not operating as per normal. So in order to avoid those scenarios, they are holding back on PPRs at this moment of time. So I'm sure once things do normalize, once all these offices start operating normally, you would still, I mean, you would start seeing COPRs. We did see some PPRs coming through from some of the visa offices. I think Ottawa did send out some. We did hear from a couple of other PPR being issued, some for some applicants in the United States as well. So as in how things will start normalizing, you should be able to see that. Okay. Okay. Webber says, are DELF B1, B2 points be counted for PNP in other provinces other than Quebec? Well, Webber, there are lots of provinces which give, I wouldn't say importance, but which give a lot of preference to French-speaking stream. Nova Scotia, Ontario, they have separate French speaker stream. So you need to check the requirements of these programs and then accordingly check what the criteria is. Probably you will find, you have a good chance with those. Okay, Shiva says we have COPR valid till Jan 21. Are we allowed to do soft landing this month since COPR is valid? Again, as I just said, soft landing in principle is being discouraged. They are telling you, so if you have a valid COPR, you can come to Canada. Nothing wrong with it. They just do not want you to travel at this point of time if you can avoid it. That's what they're trying to say. Soft landing in principle is being discouraged. Nowhere are they going to specifically insist and ask you, especially after the approval has come through, as to are you coming to Canada for permanent basis or you're coming to Canada for soft landing. The border checkpoint at the port of entry may, I do not know, I haven't heard of anybody getting refused because of that, but there may be a situation where they may ask you more leading questions to understand if the purpose of your visit is discretionary or non-discretionary. And if they find that your purpose of visit, in spite of having valid COPR and PR visa, is discretionary, then there is a possibility they may not allow you to come, especially if you do not have a good or rather proper quarantine plan and a plan to sort of establish yourself. So recommendation would be to avoid soft landing at this point of time. Trust me, traveling right now is very traumatic. It's much more of a hassle. It's not pleasant at all. So if you can avoid traveling, it would obviously make more sense. Ashish says, is FSW draw resumes at regular interval, what would be the minimum score the cutoff can go up to in 2020? Well, Ashish, nobody can tell you that answer because we do not know how many people will get into the pool. The cutoff scores are being decided based on the number of people who are getting into the pool. So there is no way on earth anybody can give you that indication as to how many people are waiting to jump into the pool, how many people are already in the pool but trying to increase their scores. Without that information, there is no way you can speculate or even take a prediction as to what the scores are going to be. Okay, Toshiv Srivastav says, is it okay to start classes online in September for a one-year course? I'm afraid, what if the borders don't open in time if I complete 50% of the course? Good question, Toshiv, and I am sure the authorities, the colleges, the universities are also aware about this predicament. And I would say that if you have an option to start your course, then do start. It will not affect your postgraduate work permit eligibility. And at a time when you would have completed your 50% of the course, I'm sure by that time there will be a better clarity as to what has to be done for the remaining 50%. I will not be surprised if they say that the whole year of online study will still be acceptable and will still give you postgraduate eligibility. However, we will need to wait for more updates as and when they happen. Okay, Rahina says, I'm a Pakistani student and have done BCom. I'm a teacher. I'm AMI Montessori. Will my both bachelors count as one and I need masters to increase? Well, a bachelor's is a bachelor's. Even if you've done two bachelors, they cannot be counted as masters, right? So as long as you haven't completed a master's degrees, you cannot expect any of the ECA agencies to give you a master's equivalency. Trushit says, is the suspension of soft landing temporary? Yes, I am absolutely sure this is a very, very temporary phase. As of right now, the idea is only to discourage discretionary travel. So if you don't have to travel, they're saying don't travel. Basically, that is safer for you and safer for others who you may come in contact with. Okay, I'm a 33-year-old and a mother. I want to know if I can come on a study visa on a one-year postgraduate program, and can my spouse and child accompany me? Yes, in principle, you can absolutely come to Canada as a student. There is nothing wrong with it. if you are studying in Canada in an eligible program, which gives you eligibility of a postgraduate work permit, it also gives you, or rather, your spouse is also eligible to apply for a postgraduate, your spouse is also eligible to apply for an open work permit. And of course, if you have dependent children who are going to accompany you, they can, or rather, they're eligible to apply for a visa. And if they do come to Canada, they can study in a public school for free. There is no issue with that. Okay, Rahim Kadri says, may I have more information on AIPP, and is that a good option for family of 4? Rahim Kadri, it's a good option for anybody, family of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it doesn't matter. It has no connection to the size of the family. AIPP is a great immigration pilot program for the 4 Atlantic provinces: New Brunswick, Prince Edward Islands, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, and Labrador. So these 4 provinces together are referred to as Atlantic provinces. The Atlantic Immigration Pilot Program was meant to encourage more people to live, work, reside, and settle their lives in the Atlantic provinces. The biggest criteria and the biggest requirement for this is having an endorsed job offer. And finding one is another story altogether. It's a very difficult one. I mean, a lot of people face a lot of issues. Please do not fall for scammers, fraudsters, all those so-called agents who are promising to find, or rather guarantee to give you a job offer. In most cases, that is not true, because they may not have that access. Anybody who's charging you money for a job offer, that should already start ringing alarm bells in your head. And yes, AIPP, good program. There is nothing wrong with the program. It is just that, and the criteria also is quite low. The education criteria is low. There are 3 different streams in the AIPP, and the IELTS requirement for some of those streams is also low. But as I said, for all of them, you do need to have a job offer in Canada, with the designated employer in one of the Atlantic provinces. Okay. So the Facebook user, which we cannot see the name for, says, I've done my bachelor's. Okay, I'm assuming that's what you meant to say. And I did 1 year postgraduate. Will it be considered as 2 degrees? Well, what will be considered as 2 degrees is that if you get an ECA, Educational Credential Assessment, from one of the agencies who is accredited to give you ECA, if they give you one equivalency of a 3-year program or a bachelor's program, and one equivalency of at least 1 year postgraduate, post-secondary program, then not post-secondary, postgraduate program, not secondary, sorry, postgraduate program, then you can get points for 2 degrees or more. Okay, Ranjit says, thank you for your efforts. Thank you. If we choose to not do soft landing and the valid COPR expires, is it akin to missing the chance of a Canadian PR? There may not be a chance to futures as CRS is high. No, Ranjit, it absolutely does not mean that you are missing your PR visa at all. All it means is that you need to apply for extension as and when you are ready to travel. That's all it means. It just means a little bit more inconvenience in terms of complying with the requirement of documentation, if at all there is a requirement specific. Could be for a medical, in some rare cases for a PCC if needed. That is the only inconvenience you may have to go through. And of course, the wait of sending your passports again, getting them cancelled, or getting a new ones issued, and that VFS charges, whatever they might charge. Apart from that, no, it is not akin to missing the chance of a Canadian PR at all. Don't worry about that. Can we expect OINP for NOC 1111 in near future? Well, fingers crossed. Maybe yes, maybe no. We don't know. Okay, another Facebook user says, my Saskatchewan score is 70 till February 2020. Well, that's pretty, till February 2020. If your score is 70 and they haven't issued 0122, again, no one can tell you whether that NOC code will be included or not be included. That is something which Saskatchewan decides based on their labor market requirements, based on their labor market reports. They basically go through various data trends analysis, and hear, or rather listen to a lot of their market leaders and people who influence their marketing decisions, not marketing, I mean the job market decisions. And based on that, the NOC codes are chosen, but there is no way to predict whether this or any NOC code will be picked up by them or not. Spidey says COPR expired, valid USA visitor visa. Cannot travel from India to Canada via USA. I do not know why you would want to do that. And even if you do travel from India to USA on a valid USA visitor visa, I'm not sure what the conditions in the US is right now. If I was you, I wouldn't want to travel to the US right now, especially for this purpose. And to be very honest, there is no specific requirements which states as to how much period you should have stayed in the US before you come to Canada and what the quarantine requirements in the US is. So if you are trying any of this, make sure you sort of take into account all of this. But I cannot tell you whether this will work or not. In principle, if you're coming from the US, then yeah, you should be able to. But it technically, if you will have any issues with this, can't really tell you. Shishir says, I'm having ECA from West and another one from IQS. While uploading on Ontario, is there any problem if I upload both to prove bachelor's and master's? No, absolutely not. As long as you have a master's equivalency, that will be accepted. ONP reference letter, I have the letter from the manager from his official email ID. I will take a printout and notarize it. Will it be something? See, when you take, what does notarize mean? Notarize basically means that the person who's notarizing it, so that person is obviously a lawyer or somebody in the court, somebody in the official authority, who is stating that the person who has signed this document has signed it in front of me and I have checked this person's identification, right? So how will you get this document notarized if it's on an email, right? So just think about that. Again, if this is on email and if from an official email ID, you should be able to use it with obviously the explanation of COVID and you not being able to get the actual document. Do you have any information regarding Yukon immigration pilot program? Sarandeep Singh, yes, it again needs a job offer from the employer there. And once you get the job offer, then you will need to sign a tri-party agreement between the employer, between the province and yourself to say that you will sort of comply with the requirements. But more information is available on their website. When can we next the express entry draw? The next express entry draw ideally should happen. When was the last one? I think next week, probably. Hopefully, was it next? I think so. I keep losing track of this. So the last one was 8th, then it was on the 22nd. Then yeah, I think probably next week, next Friday, next Wednesday, hopefully. Fingers are always crossed to see more draws more often, but express entry draws should happen. I mean, they should keep up with the once in 2 weeks kind of requirement. After the COPR extension is approved, generally how long IRCC takes to respond whether I'm ready to travel now? Well, if your COPR extension is approved, you should receive the extension approval in your CIC account or in your email, and there is no established timeline as of right now, but based on your plan, based on your travel itinerary, you should be able to get your confirmation before that, hopefully. When will soft landing restriction be lifted? I would assume as and when things start normalizing. I got Ontario notifications. Narinder Singh says, and my IELTS exam appearance date was 28th of July and the result days were 9th of August. How can I convince Ontario for considering my profile with current nomination? Well, I honestly am not able to understand your question. So you got the Ontario notification of interest, but did you not already have IELTS exams? Because, I mean, did you not already have IELTS scores there? So I'm not very clear about your query. So did you create your express entry profile without your IELTS results? I mean, something not right there. Okay. Masood says my GCMS says LMIA pending, applicant details correct, but POP CTZ is entered UAE instead of Pakistan. I checked docs. I submitted, all is correct. Did my employer make a mistake? Well, to be very honest, Masood, GCMS notes need to be read or rather need to be taken in context with lots of things. Just taking a small portion out and asking for interpretation will not really help you or me in understanding what they're talking about. Apurva says, as I'm soon going to apply for PR for my spouse on my basis as I'm a PR already. Okay, so spousal application. After I apply for her file, can she come and stay here on a visitor visa, which she already has? And how are the implications if possible? Well, there are no implications. If she already has a visitor visa, she can visit you based on the non-essential travel because it's under family separation. I don't see any implications at all, my dear friend. You can absolutely go ahead and apply. Jamesh says regarding the soft landing, if the travel plan to come back to home country post 3 months, will that be considered a soft landing? Yes, Jamesh, it will be considered a soft landing when you return back to your home country, whether it's after 1 week, 10 days, 2 weeks, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months later. The period is not the criteria. The period is that you do intend to return back to your home country, which basically means you're not looking to permanently settle in Canada at this point of time, which basically means you're soft landing. Karthik says, I'm having 6 months experience as a guest lecturer, and then after 3 years gap, I got one. Can I claim this as 3 years? Yes, you can claim this as 3 years of experience, because as long as you have at least 1 year of work experience continuous, then any other periods of work within the last 10 years, which have a valid NOC code, you can combine to sort of have a 3 years combined work experience for CRS course. Gautam says, as a primary applicant, I plan to land in September and move permanently. Can my wife, who is a secondary applicant, apply for a COPR extension? Yes, she can. There is nothing wrong with that. Another Facebook user says, my COPR has expired and I intend to travel in December. When shall I send ready to travel, considering IRCC may take time? Well, whenever you are ready to travel, that's when you tell them you're ready to travel. So give it some, at least, a month's time. So if you are all ready, everything is planned, everything is done for you to travel end of December, probably ask for it for an extension towards the mid of November is what I would say. Okay, is security background checked? Which things are checked and what methods are applied? Is social media monitored and to what extent? Anwar, under security background check, plenty of things are checked. They are checking for your, if you have any connection to any organized crime, terrorist organizations, human right violations, if you have any security concerns in terms of any watch list, any wanted lists. The methods that I use are the CSIS, which is CSIS, which will the agency which Canada has for the national security. They will use RCMP. These are the two agencies that the Canada will use in terms of checking your data to see if you are in any of the watch lists. In addition to that, they also have information sharing with the Five Eyes program, whereby they will check for if you are under any watch list, wanted lists, or if you're wanted for any crimes, or if you're wanted for any other security concern, national security threats in New Zealand, Australia, UK, United States, and Canada. So that is basically the combination of things. As far as social media monitored, when they do this watch list checking, at some point of time, I'm sure social media monitoring would happen. Not necessarily to go to your specific Facebook profile and to check what pictures you have been posting. Not in that aspect of things, but it's a very, very much wider and much larger way of going through the security or rather going through the background to do the security checks. I wish I was privy to the information of how exactly that is done. That information is not available to me or to most of us. And your basic background check is done in terms of you being a threat to the national security, or you being inadmissible to Canada under any of the inadmissibilities. Okay. Gary says, can we change, update job experience details in EE profile after we receive the nomination? Yes, you can. But what kind of changes you're making is the question mark. Are you changing the NOC code, because that is under which you have received your nomination? Are you changing the work experience? Are you removing the employment under which you have received the nomination? That can make a bit of a difference. Apart from that, if it's just about certain small changes in terms of the date, sometimes you made an error, or the designation or the name of the company, you made a small error and typo error, making those changes is not a problem. A girl from Brazil got ETA and has reached Canada with old expired COPR and PR visa. Same has happened with a guy from Algeria and Germany. When will IRCC do same with Indians? I wish I can give you the answer to that. I do not know about the instances that you have mentioned. Again, there is no way to have any credible proof to check what has happened, what was their background, because a lot of people give you a lot of information on social media. There is no way to establish exact background on those instances which have been mentioned. Canada is, rather IRCC is already has started giving you extensions. So if you have the, or rather they have started, they have made the provisions to provide for the extensions. So if you're one of those who needs the extension, please provide CIC with the required documents as they have asked for the purpose of extension in terms of the settlement plan, and you would also get it from India. And yeah, you would not have any issues comparing yourself with other applicants from other countries. Facebook user says, for those people who get PPR after 18th March, can we travel or not? No, you cannot travel at this point of time. Vishnu says, for COPR extensions, do we request after expiry of validity or proactively before expiry? Well, if you ask for extension before expiry, there's no point of asking for extension before expiry, because your COPR is still valid. You should ask for extension when you are ready to travel and you have a plan in place to establish that you will be residing in Canada permanently. PG diploma or masters, which is the better option to choose and help in PR process? Obviously, it's a master's degree. If you're doing it in Canada, even better, because it gives you more points. If you're doing it not in Canada but anywhere in your home country, even then master's degree gives you more points. And also to help you in the PNP process. For example, Saskatchewan does not recognize 2 degrees or more. So they give you points for bachelor's or for master's. So therefore, if you have a master's degree, you obviously will get more points and more benefit. Right, last few questions before we wrap up today. Ashish says, does the 18th March deadline applies to new PPR holders? I have received PPR last week from Sydney, Aussie. Yes, it does apply to everybody. It applies to everybody because everywhere they've specified very clearly that if your PR visa was issued 18 March or earlier, you can travel. If later, then you basically cannot travel at all at this point of time. So yeah, I'm just trying to check on something else as well. Right, I just want to show you one more thing before we get on. Right, so as you can see, and I think we didn't talk about this earlier, and I want to talk to you specifically about Group 2. Now, Group 2 does not have any date, and I was prompted to talk about this only because of this last question which came up from Ashish, this deadline of 18th March. Now, let me take this off for a minute. Where did we go? Oh, I can't see it. Yeah, here. Right. So in Group 2, if you notice, it says applicants can travel to Canada from the US for non-discretionary reasons to settle and live in Canada as permanent residents if their application was approved. They've received the COPR and PR visa, both are still valid, and they have an acceptable plan for quarantine. Nowhere in this does it talk about the date of 18th March or the fact that your COPR was issued 18 March or before. It would basically then give me the reason to assume that if your COPR was issued after 18th of March, and if you are in the United States, then you should be able to travel to Canada. Okay, because that's what it says over here. That's what, and for all the other 3 groups, in the Group 1 it says 18th March. In Group 3 it talks about 18th March. But again, when it comes to Group 4, and that is for people who are traveling from the US, there is no requirement of 18th March anymore. Again, so that again tells you that if you're coming from the United States, the requirement of 18th March is no longer applicable. At least that's what this particular link from the CIC website is talking about. So that should again give you some sort of hope that it will very soon be applied to other countries as well. If it's happening for the US, then they should basically, make it, they should apply it to others as well, because a lot of people have been waiting for ages to start, coming to Canada and getting on with their lives permanently. And a lot of them don't even want to do any soft landing. Right. So that's all from me for today. I mean, there are still tons of questions that are there, but we can go on and on and on, and it will never end. If I haven't been able to answer your question, if there was a question which I haven't looked at or haven't seen it, then please come back to our Facebook group. The Facebook group is a great place to sort of come back and ask your questions. I'm just sort of going to pick that up and show it to you. Oh, that screen's big. Hold on. Yeah. Where did this go? Sorry. Right, I'm just going to bring this to your screen. Okay. I thought I was going to bring it to the screen. Okay, it is not going to come up right now. Anyway, so yeah, if I haven't answered your question, please come back to our Facebook groups. We have a Ask Kubeir Express Entry Canada PR group, or if you already have your COPR, join our post PPR group. There is a lot of discussion happening all the time, giving you lots of options, answers to your questions that will always give you an indication of what's happening. If you're joined our Facebook group, that will also give you questions to that will also give you answers to a lot of your other questions, which will also help you understand what the processes, where the processes are going. Follow us on Instagram. We do some Instagram lives off and on. Here, right now, here, I mean, at the bottom of the screen here, no, here, where is it? Yeah, here, this one. So that's the Instagram. You can follow us on Instagram there. There's also the Twitter account there, which you can look at. Let me see. Okay, that's the Twitter and that's the Instagram. That's the Twitter, that's the Instagram. Yes, so follow us and we can have more discussions on different platforms and social media. It was nice of you guys to have come in, dropped in. If you are watching this on the YouTube channel, do subscribe, do like. It gives us more reasons to come back and do more of these sessions. I intend to keep doing this probably every Sunday if I can keep up with that. And if I can, then we will see you next Sunday. And if not, then watch out for our next notification of when the next one is going to be. Until that time, bye-bye. See you next time.